welcome back to the Vertical Plus podcast. I'm your host, Chase Hammock. I'm here with Austin Lightspeed.
No.
Avery Strong
No.
Oak.
Avery Strong Oak.
No.
Back
And
in
Ben.
the building.
Hey, welcome back, Ben.
Benjamin David. If you have three first names, then you don't need a tag name.
Nope.
You know? It's like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yep, that's right. It's the very same thing.
Yeah.
I also think we should do today part 3 of Ben's story. I can take up 30 minutes talking about just
We'll
one
just
random
need a
day.
separate
The
podcast
latter
for
years.
that.
The
The
latter
past
years.
week.
What's next for Ben, right?
I'm kind of bummed out. You know, we did that episode where we did recommends as you. It would have been kind of fun to do an episode after you told your story where we told your story. That would have been pretty fun.
Oh man, yes.
That would have been.
I feel like I need to do that for each staff member here.
That would have been a
Especially
good
after
time.
staff retreat, once I made everyone tell me their stories.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah,
I'm
we
in
don't
a great
talk
mood.
about staff retreat. what happens in Birmingham stays in Birmingham.
Is that where we were? Birmingham?
A little
Apparently.
north of
No,
it.
I don't
a little
remember.
north.
We're in the middle
Smith
of nowhere.
Lake.
Yeah,
Smith Lake.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
The most oddly shaped lake in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was odd. I enjoyed the kayaking out
Yeah.
there, but yeah, Alabama lakes are weird.
Very weird, yeah.
Austin's like, I'll never go kayaking with Avery
That's a good band
ever
name,
again.
Alabama Lakes.
Alabama lakes.
No, Alabama
was my ba-
Shakes.
What was my band name last week?
I don't remember.
I had one and called it, and I listened back
Oh, it
to
was
the.
something like bottom half or something.
I don't remember what it was, but I listened to it. I
Underpants
was
or
like,
something?
dang, that is a good band
I don't
name.
remember what it was.
All right, anyway,
Yeah.
did we fulfill our 3 minutes?
We
Is that
always
still
do a
thing?
great
Our
job
intro.
like making it as difficult as possible for Chase to bring the topic in. I love it.
Well, you know.
It's like, how will he segue it this
Yeah,
time?
we have kayaks, band names.
You know what's
See,
creepy?
we've handed it to you, right?
Mortuaries. Anyway, what are
Yeah.
we talking about today?
Take it away,
Like
Chase.
Coney 2012.
the weirdest
Best
ending of a
ending to any
podcast.
podcast ever.
So random.
I listened back to it and I still don't know how that came up.
He said, wow, what a video.
So Rachel, my wife, and I have these things. I think I coined the term, but it was because of how her brain works. And then also how my brain works. But I call them thought trains, where like something happened.
Like Inside Out? The
just
train of thought?
I guess, but mine's a little
Great movie.
like chaotic.
Oh.
Like, you know, like
Bing
she'll
bong.
she'll say something, I'll zone out while she talks, and then she'll say, "What are you thinking about?" I was like, "Well, you know, it's something." And then she's like, "How did you get there?"
I think this is called marriage.
See,
Yeah,
I
that's
asked
true.
Dalton what he's thinking about, and he's like, absolutely nothing. And I'm like, what?
How's that
Like,
even possible?
what? How is that possible?
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, that is possible.
Not for me.
It's honestly one of the best
No.
feelings you can have is when you've officially like gotten to the point where you're not thinking about anything. You're just kind of
It's lovely.
yeah.
I
I don't
think
know
that's
that I've ever been
happened.
there.
Yeah.
And then people come up and are like, "You okay?" I was.
Now I'm
great.
thinking about if I'm
It was
okay
in
or
a
not.
pure meditated state until you interrupted me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Is that
all
what
right.
this episode's
Speaking of
about?
meditation, dealing with things that are hard through meditation. Is that what you talk about?
Mm,
I
No,
mean,
Psalms.
That's what I heard.
Oh, so your train of thought was somewhere else while I was teaching. Dang.
you had a marriage moment
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah.
So we're dusting off.
We're as married as two guys get, you know,
Yeah, on a church
Kinda-
staff.
on
yeah.
a church staff.
You were with
Wait.
me a lot this weekend for not living with me.
That's true. I realized at about 1 o'clock last night when I left Chase's house, I was like, man, I basically spent the weekend here and haven't slept here. That was pretty much what happened.
You look really happy. That's nice.
I thought about you yesterday, Chase. I went to Wendy's. And I thought about you.
Oh.
See, Five Guys is a compliment.
See, we
not-
don't have time for that today.
Y'all ate a
Your feelings
lot
on
of
Wendy's.
Wendy's. for
We're
a
approaching
long
5
time.
minutes now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. We have, sorry, everyone.
Ben, that was justified. Next.
So we're dusting off an old format today. We're gonna talk about what we talked about on Sunday, but not like rehashing it because we're lame. I don't know. I didn't have anywhere to go with that. But we thought, or I thought that what you talked about this past Sunday, Austin, was finally interesting enough to bring it back on the follow-up podcast.
Was it the
episode.
astronauts? Was it NASA? Is
Yep.
that what did it?
Always.
Because I need you to know that, like, I could have talked about astronauts. I mean, you guys know I could have talked about astronauts for probably the whole.
I feel like you were more in depth with the astronaut stuff first service than you were the second service.
it's because I knew the danger I was getting into. Yeah.
Limited
toned
time.
it
Well, I'm
back
glad
a
I was
little
at
bit.
the first
I
service.
I got about 20 minutes into the talk and was like not even halfway done in first service and was like, I even told Ben afterwards, like, man, I really got to rein that in
Because I really love
Like,
space.
oh yeah,
love-
and the Bible.
I love space and
So these
Psalms.
astronauts read the Bible in space.
Cosmos.
And it was like
and the
Psalms.
cosmos. You can ask Caitlin. I've said since I was a young man that my dream job would be a space cowboy. That's really what I want to do. So anyway, Casey Musgraves, go ahead.
All right.
So
Great.
so yesterday we started a series.
Yeah, if you weren't here or you haven't listened to it yet, hit that previous button 2 times, and it'll take you back to the episode before this one.
You'll have to listen to all of this again, but it will be well worth
Well,
it.
just know, okay, we're at 6.5 minutes about. So just come back to this point right now.
Timestamp.
Welcome
you gotta-
back. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure great the pop.
Great talk, Ryan.
Make sure I had to listen to you on 1.5 speed, by the way,
Oh, good.
and it sounded normal.
That's because you're elite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, what'd you talk about? Give us an overview.
Struggling.
So we started a new series yesterday called A Long Obedience. And
A space long obedience.
A-L-O-O-O-O-O-O-O-O-O.
No, it's just one long O.
Okay, fine. A long obedience.
Long.
A long.
And essentially the premise of this series and a little bit of backstory. When we go into the year, our system looks like Ben and I typically try and come up with a multitude of series that we could potentially talk on in the next year. And we will both come with several. We'll both get rid of a couple that we think, that may not make the cut, or that may not be as interesting as I originally thought, or maybe that'll be a good talk for one random Sunday. But here are a set group of series that we want to go through in the year.
Yes.
This series was one that Ben came up with and one that he was very excited about. Yeah.
Fist pump. Rocky.
Right. So pumped. This is one that he was really, really excited about. It's always a little awkward, even though we do kind of initially begin these talks together. We write together a little bit, and then it's kind of like we check each other as we go throughout the week. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that, but
Probably not.
it's a very intertwined process.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, whenever you are starting off a series that somebody else initially wrote, it can be a little challenging because you're like, I really want to make sure I have the right vision going into this for what this is. So
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to give just a little pretext for what A Long Obedience is. The idea surrounds 4 psalms in particular that are called the Psalms of Ascent. And these psalms, I mentioned it in the talk, if you went back and listened to it, these psalms would have been repeated and recited by these Jewish people who were making a religious trek up to Jerusalem. And they would serve as reminders for certain things. They would serve as reminders of protection from God. They would serve as reminders of the unity of the group. They would serve as reminders for the joy that is only found in God, and which is, kind of important when you're on this long hike and it's a little miserable, And so yesterday in particular, we attacked the first of these, which honestly, I think it's a psalm with some misconceptions in it. I addressed that in
For
the
me,
talk,
yeah,
but there,
especially.
was that interesting for you, like reading through this? And we've kind of been reading a book going into it. It's really good, and it's by Eugene Peterson. And when I first started reading on this psalm, I was like, wow, I've had that wrong for 27 years.
Yeah, you said yesterday, preacher got it wrong.
Yeah, preacher got it wrong. This is not.
You want to
this-
reread it real quick, just so
psalm
people have
itself?
context?
Yeah, sure. The book by Eugene Peterson.
All of it.
Yeah, all of it, just-
Ready, go.
No,
Audiobook.
yeah, I can do that. It's Psalm 121. This is the New International Version, and it says, "I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the Maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand, and the sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming, going, both now and forevermore." And so essentially what we did in this passage is we called out a couple of things. One, there were some things that they would have been very afraid of, and you can go back and listen to the talk and see what those were and kind of how
The moon.
Yeah, they were
They're
they
scared
were
of
afraid of
the
the
moon.
moon.
Yeah.
Kind of. There were some things that they were very afraid of. There were also some things that would be very distracting for them, which I think is where we're going to kind of camp out today. But also, there is a point where the psalmist is giving direct context for the God that they were worshiping and the role that he would be playing in their life. And that would be in comparison to the other gods of the land that other people would be worshiping. So it would have meant a lot for them. This has been a very encouraging reminder for them as they're taking this big, long hike.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is that we had kind of lost, in terms of that verse and then putting it into modern times, we had kind of lost like the scary, fearful thing.
It was
that-
only
that comes
encouragement.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And
totally missed that.
right. And like the distraction part was incredibly prevalent. And then here comes 2020 to say, well, no, you get both parts of the
Yeah.
verse right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, have some
Um,
terrifying.
Be afraid and distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think you said it a minute ago, but I think the more interesting thing for us to focus on, and the thing that's less talked about because Corona is everything at the moment, is the distraction piece of it. Because especially in America, like people really put that to the wayside because it's just kind of
Well,
it's just part of society.
we
all
have the
these things.
opportunity to have a myriad of distractions.
Right.
Like I said, or actually, no, I said that Wednesday. But the reality is that we are so much more. We have so many more benefits than even anybody in the earth. Our poorest people are some of the world's richest people, and so
Right.
we have so many distractions at our disposal, even if we don't feel like it, because they're just in the context of life here.
Right.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Like the distractions here would have definitely been a little bit different because they were religious in nature and overtly religious. They would have been asking them to worship in these very like distasteful and even sinful ways. But that being said, the line that I was trying to draw through the talk yesterday, and I hope that it was clear, was that just because they are not so overtly sexual and being thrown in the face of God, not always, our distractions are not always, they still have the possibility of taking the place of God in our lives. Like, and that's a scary thing, particularly in a time like 2020 with coronavirus and all of these things going on, and we're rushing to our distractions. It's like, man, I was doing this because I thought that I needed distraction to survive. Have I actually replaced my relationship with God with something that was initially just trying to fill my time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It for people that had the benefit of being fairly healthy through 2020, the thing that got called out the most was not so much your fear-based stuff, but like your dependency on these things that have come in as like injection points in your life to like sustain you almost in a weird way.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think it's intertwined in all of our stories.
Yeah.
I mean, man, even we talked about it yesterday, but even blessings like, pleasure and power and people in your life can become those distractions that end up damning your future because they take your focus off of God. And that can be as small as, hey, I went to a really great school and now I have a really great job. It's like, well, yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, God wants to use that in your life. But if that is the end goal of your life, then you are never going to live a life fulfilled to the fullest by Christ. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got some weird looks when I said that yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I got some weird looks when we walked through that.
That was great.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts, Ben? Or like, what were maybe your taglines that are like follow-up of Austin's?
How would you have corrected
talk.
me on stage?
That's a good way to word
Well,
it.
let me pull out my notes
Yeah, I'm
here.
gonna say, I saw him in the back with his field notes, and he was just going crazy.
No, I was listening to it. It is interesting. We always kind of get into the backstory before the story, but I had read through the script multiple times, learning from it before it was delivered, and was excited to be able to sit in there and hear it delivered because I knew, like, man, this content is so good, so applicable. But I knew it was going to take a communicator that could sit in the let me build the backstory. Let me give you a little bit of understanding about what's going on here, and actually answering the challenge that we've given each other through this year of saying we're going to move into some difficult language because it's the language of our faith.
Yeah.
Even if the gap is pretty large, we're going to work as hard as we can to close that gap. And I thought it was great bringing those things in that are actually affecting students as well. Having a 13-year-old that lives in my home, it made me face, I hope I'm answering your question, but
Sure.
It made me face, after the brainstorm that we had weeks ago about the pain and the pleasure and that stuff, and I was talking mostly about my 13-year-old, But I was sitting in the room yesterday like, shoot,
Yeah. Well,
I've got those things too.
for
you know?
for background, and I mentioned this in one of the services yesterday. I don't know which one it was. Now that I think about it, but we have dedicated a whole series in Amplifier student ministry right now to just those 4 words, those 4 distractions: pain, pleasure, power, and people. And man, when you start to dig into that and the way that we interact with each and every one of those things, God, like it gets so convoluted so
Yeah.
quickly.
That's
you know?
the main thing I noticed as you were rolling through that list. I could not, there was no place to hide.
Yeah.
Like, man, I've got issues in all of these categories, you know?
Yeah.
And also I was very, very proud to be able to say in our room, yeah, I've had that wrong too. I was thinking, I was with you. Like, I've had that wrong too. I've had it taught to me incorrectly.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes me mad a little bit, but I'm dealing with that because we're correcting it to say, yeah, I thought about that in the wrong way too. And then what really hit me was the end part where you started talking about those honesty pieces. It's like, man, I struggle with that. As much as I talk about it and as much as I try to call people to it, just that honesty piece is so very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's well, I mean, we talked about that even last week, knowing what we were going to be teaching this week. It's a hard thing to call people into honesty and then like live that out, you know, to be honest about your fears. And it's kind of sad, but I was thinking yesterday after the talk, like, we've talked a lot about fears in this last year.
Yeah.
It's been basically based around one thing, though. It's like, okay, either you're afraid of the virus or you're afraid of the aftermath of the virus. You're afraid of the relationships that have been severed because of it. You're afraid of your financial standing. You're afraid that the doors of the church aren't going to be open. You're afraid, but it's all surrounded around this other thing. I wonder how afraid many of us are of those distractions, though. You know,
very little.
even just the even the good things,
Yeah.
like we said, you know.
Yeah, very little.
Yeah, I'm curious for you to go a little more in depth on your 3 like action points that you did at the end.
Yeah.
Specifically the second one, but I think all 3 of them are worth going into a little more.
For sure.
So what was your reasoning? Like, what were the sticking points for these 3? Like, why were these the 3 that were the advice that you were giving at the end of this talk, the practical application?
Man, so we typically try and spend a couple of weeks on a script for a Sunday, you know, hopefully.
Yeah. 4 is the goal.
Yeah, we're not playing catch up, you know. We need a few weeks to look over it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think I'm correct in this, Ben, both of us have found in this series is that because we are dealing with these Psalms that are in a different context, and I mentioned yesterday, like, we can admit it is a hard thing to look at a book that is thousands of years old and try and draw a line of application to where we currently live. I mean, I feel bad for people that walk in churches and they're like, this is it, go on, you know? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, how do we do this, you know?
Well, even like the first one you're talking about, to be honest about your fears, like that can encompass a fear within itself, like that you're going to devote so much of your life to this thing that was born centuries ago.
Yeah.
And like, what if it's not true at the end of the day?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a real fear that we hear about all the time, and I even have that fear, you know. But I think that what I was thinking there is like, there's a reason with these Psalms comes an undertone that we are on a journey together. Not only were we on a journey together, we are reciting and singing these songs together as a point of unity, which we will get to in a couple of weeks. A much broader point on that. But one of the notes that I had here, just kind of for myself in my own writing, was that there's a reason that we sing together. It's so that we can all remember our common training on trust in God, right?
Yeah.
We're singing this communally so that we have that common understanding of like, that's where our trust is at right now. And so for us to be able to say this is where our trust is, we have to be very honest about why that trust would break, which
Yeah.
gets down to the second one. But we have a hard time about being honest about our fears of the church. There's some very over-the-counter answers you can get when it comes to fears, right? And
Yeah.
they've changed a little bit, but I don't know about you. I hear the same answers all the time, and sometimes I just want to look at students or men or whoever that I'm engaged with. And
Not
just be-
women, though.
Not women, you know. But
Okay.
but whoever I'm engaged with and be like, no, like, what are you really afraid of? Don't give me that, great value answer that you give everybody. I want to know what you're actually afraid of and why do you need Jesus,
So what are those? I love that generic over the counter. What are those answers?
Man,
Here's one I hear a lot. I'm just afraid that my kids will grow up and not know the Lord.
yeah, I'm thinking about how to do this without stepping on toes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let me
think
do it
so.
then.
Yeah.
I'm just afraid that, I'm not accomplishing God's will for my life.
Yeah.
They're always said like that too.
Overly
And-
churchy.
Yeah,
and
very, very churchy.
And they say, they all have like a grain of truth. I mean, you should not want your children to not know Jesus.
But they're
Right,
just
yeah.
reciting things if they've heard
Yeah.
throughout their
I
whole
also,
experience.
it's like your children or your spouse. They're afraid for somebody else's
Yeah.
well-being, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Well, I
Yeah.
think people are afraid of being honest with themselves. Like I think sometimes that's the hardest part about being honest about your fears is that you have to sit down and really think through those things and be honest with yourself about it first. And then I feel like it's also a scary thing because, I mean, being honest about your fears is the first step into doing something about it, which I think is really what sets people back is because, okay, if I address this, then I'm going to have to do something about it. And there's going to be work involved and it's going to be hard.
for sure.
And, it's just you have to remind them that it's worth it.
Well, it's usually pinned on it. You're exactly right, and I don't want to cheapen it by saying it's not a hard thing to do or a difficult thing to do because you're entering a process, you're entering a journey. That's terrifying for some people, but typically they will give you, to sum up what you were just saying, they're smaller answers that are actually a symptom of a much bigger problem.
Right.
It's like, I haven't been in church and I'm drinking a little more than I want to, and it's like, okay.
Those are symptoms.
So,
Yeah, those
for sure.
cool. I get that, and I can understand that. But why?
Yeah.
Because in reality, that is probably an effect of whatever you are actually afraid of.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be honest about that. And I mentioned yesterday that honesty doesn't, as scary as this sounds for somebody who literally gets paid to talk on stages, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't take place in an auditorium. Not usually. That takes place in a garage or at a kitchen table or where or in the truck on a drive out to the land or whatever that is. Those conversations are intimate. That's not one guy talking to hundreds of people.
Right.
That's a one-on-one or one on however many conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're
is
taught
also
to
scary.
we're taught to fear. I don't know if that's a Southern American thing, but admitting what you're afraid of, or even being honest in general, we associate with what follows that is usually punitive action. You've been honest, and that scares us to death. Whatever social situation you're in,
Yeah.
you've been honest, that scares us to death. So now we're not going to be in a relationship with you, like as a friend group, as a community, as a group of people that are working at a place.
Well, and especially now where, my God, all I've heard this year is, he hasn't given us a spirit of fear. So,
Right.
and I'm like, okay. Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're not ever afraid.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
way to ostracize everybody
it can
who needs
feel
Jesus.
isolating, for sure.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I think it also calls to, I couldn't agree with that more, but I think it also calls to, we're not very good at observation today. We're good at consumption today, which is a lot of the distraction stuff that we're talking about. But being observant, and especially observant of ourselves, that is, man, you want to talk about emptying a church. You start talking about that stuff. Like
Yeah.
you need to observe, what is it that makes you afraid? I remember the most paralytic question I've heard in my adult life. A guy asked me, he said, "What do you want?" I was like, and I started giving all those answers. And he had, he was using profanity with me, really boxing me around in this environment, which I'm thankful for, because it made me realize, whoa, that's not the program here. I can't give the over-the-counter answer. He's like, "No, what do you want?" I'm like, and eventually I had to say, "I guess I don't know." He's like, "Okay, now we can get started."
Yeah.
So having that level of observation about being able to sit back and say, let me observe what I'm really afraid of. I mean, it's just not something that's applauded. And what I fight, especially inside of the masculine culture today, sitting with men a lot, you start to ask them to observe internally. I mean, you're sunk. They fumble and they feel embarrassed, and the conversation turns to sports or politics really quickly.
Well, it's because there's not a quick fix to that. Like, you can't run to the store and grab, whatever you need.
Yeah.
It's a process, and it's like that's like you said, Avery,
Yeah,
you're
it's
exactly
hard-
right.
hard
That's
to
the
address your
scary part,
fears,
is
yeah.
knowing you're starting a process. You
Right.
know?
Mhm.
I think it also the observation stuff also. I think 1 and 3 on this list, which is be honest about your fears and be honest about your story, go like uber hand in hand.
Yeah. It
because-
was appropriate to separate them in the teaching.
right. They're two different things,
Well,
but
they almost stair step.
Yeah.
So like if you're reading through it, and this is kind of the way that I wrote it, it's like, hey, you need to be honest about what you're afraid of, so that you can be honest about the danger of abandonment. And once you get through those times when you're like, ooh, I was close, but I didn't do it, then you need to share that story so people don't think that they're alone in that.
and even like what I was getting at with like the observation stuff you're talking about, Ben, like sometimes you don't even like know how to be honest about your story without someone else hearing it.
oh yeah,
Like that's one of the main things we talk about in the benefits of therapy and like mental health is like sometimes you don't know what the frick is wrong.
yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or you don't know what your past is doing to you right now.
Until you say
Right.
it out loud, and they're like, oh, I noticed this, and
You're
you're
like,
like,
oh, well, there's that.
How'd you get that in 30
Wait.
seconds? And I've spent 30 years
yeah,
trying
oh, really though?
to figure this out.
Yeah.
yeah.
One day
Yeah.
my therapist said
For
to me,
sure.
I went on this big long diatribe thing, and I was telling this big story, and I got to the
What?
end, and he goes, "You know that's messed up, right?"
Yeah,
And I
I've
was
been there
like,
too.
No. He goes, "Yeah, that's really messed up. We're gonna talk about that for a couple times." And I was like, "No, please, can we not do that?"
Wait, I didn't mean to
I
say it.
didn't- yeah, I'm just
I've made a mistake.
yeah. So yeah, having somebody mirror back to you, or to step
Why
somebody
couldn't
out.
you tell the doctor, I pee 9 times a day?
Yeah, you know that's messed up, right?
Yeah. What?
I'm curious.
Same
I want to
thing,
hear. I want to hear your further thoughts on number 2, Austin, because some of your bullet points that you had underneath that really intrigued me.
Yeah. So I think one thing that has also come out of 2020 is that we grab on so tightly to our opinions. And usually that comes from that distraction of people or power, right?
Mhm.
Power and people both promise us that we're going to have a place even if we're wrong, you know? But the reality is that once we grab onto those things and we so firmly plant ourselves and even our identity in those certain distractions, right? When those things inevitably fail us, desertion is right around the corner. Like you never know how close it is. I gave the example of a friend of mine who was in AA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've been having to do AA online. I didn't know this until a couple of months ago, I guess. And since then, I've heard it several times. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't think about that. But a friend of mine is in AA, and they've been having to do it like basically Zoom meetings, right? And he's like, when there's no interaction there, it's like so hollow.
You know who talked about that? Dax. He said it in an episode.
Dax Shepard.
Dax Shepard.
Oh, Andrew did, or his friend.
Maybe
Uh,
that was it.
Anyway,
They were talking. Yeah.
can confirm.
Yeah.
You know. so anyway, he was talking about how hollow that relationship seems when actually initially like he thought that was kind of like it was getting him by clearly,
Mhm.
you know. And so the immediate response with like one bad meeting online is like, well, do I even need this? Right? Another good friend of mine, one bad therapy session, and he was like, all right, you know. And so I think that what I'm trying to get at this is like we need to be clear that there is a possibility of desertion. Even if you have committed to a life of Christ. We see that all the time. And most of the time, what the church does is they're so firmly planted in their pews that they're like, how could that happen? He must have never known Jesus. It's like, no, he probably had a bad day and nobody reached out to help, and he deserted that quickly.
We do that in so many different areas of life, though.
Yeah.
Like you have one bad salesman at the shoe store, you're never going back to the shoe station
Yeah.
again.
Right. Yeah.
Which is stupid.
So I think that next step after being able to say like, hey, I have real fears. Here's what they are. I know what they are now. Now I need to get real about the fact that there is a possibility that I could desert this life. There is a possibility that I can look to these hills and say, you know what? Actually, that distraction looks pretty good today, and I'm kind of at my rope's end. Because only if we admit that that's a possibility can we start to put in a foundation that guards against that, right? If you don't
Yeah.
think that it can ever happen, then you're the dude who loses his family and his job and all of those things, and you're left in Ben's office asking what happened. You know,
Yeah.
because if you don't think that it can happen to you, then you don't guard against it.
Right.
Yeah, and guarding against it, and this gets to your communal piece, is if you're going to the full word picture, then you would station people on the outside of that trail that leads to Jerusalem. You would station people at a couple different places on the trail that leads to the top of the mountain with somebody that goes, dude, you don't want to do this.
Well, and that's that third piece. Like
Yeah.
once you have either fallen off the trail multiple times and made it back, it's important that you share that story, and it's important that we engage in that community, because really that is the biggest barrier, the biggest guard that God has given us other than the Holy Spirit. It is, we don't think of people as aids to the Holy Spirit's role in our life, but it's definitely the role the community is supposed to play in our life. If we don't set up that guard, though, like you said, there's no barrier. You know, distractions are inevitably going to get to us.
Yeah. Yeah, but it just requires so much. Like I was thinking this as you were delivering this talk, and someone talked to me in the lobby, and the word they used was dense. Man, that teaching was really dense. I've got a lot to think about, and which is good. I mean, that's great. That's the opposite of most people's experiences of the church these days. They don't say it was dense. Like,
Right.
well, I got the bottom line or whatever we used to call it.
love my neighbor.
That's right. But to think through all that is actually required to obtain this type of life, it isn't. We were just discussing this before we turned the mics on. It isn't just saying a prayer or checking a box, or even being baptized in a church lobby or anything like that. It's not one thing in isolation. It's a lot of things in combination. That's why a long obedience is what we're talking about, because you're committing not just to, let me do this one thing this one time. It's like, let me do a lot of things a lot of times over time, so that when I meet God at the end of this life, we're not going to have to introduce ourselves to each other. Like, we've been sharing this for a really long time.
Well, I think what we need to tell people, and we can be brutally honest about where the church has been for however many decades or century or whatever. The reality is that most people who have struggled with that in the last however many years have not been set up for success. But because the church has been very focused on introducing you to Jesus and putting your name down on a sheet, like you said, we were just talking about this, and then there is no follow-up. One of the reasons that I love Vertical so much, and one of the reasons that Caitlin and I ended up here, is I saw an intentionality for broken people who may already know Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
But the reality is that we're in this to live a life together. It isn't just to put your name on a sheet and hope you make it out. You know, I don't want to see you back here coming back down the aisle over and over and over again because you didn't think you got it right last time. We want to make sure that you get it right in the long run by living life together.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good.
So anyway,
Yeah, Avery said that's good. So seems we did a good job.
All
Way
right.
to go,
It's
everybody.
good.
Check. All right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's do some questions.
all right.
You guys remember what like old car horns used to sound like?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh,
Yeah. That does sound
Okay.
like an old, like
coincidentally,
a Looney Tunes.
great title for a segment.
oh.
Do you think anybody out there is wondering why we say that?
Yeah, there's probably someone new to the podcast that like doesn't know it.
Hey, we're doing something right. Our viewership is up.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hello.
not by much,
because
but
Austin's back.
Ask
We'll take
us
it. Anything.
Ask
Yes.
us anything, Avery.
Awesome.
Oh,
So apparently we have a really controversial question here.
No, it should not be a
It
controversy
shouldn't be.
at all.
I feel like it's about to be though.
I'm honestly really shocked by the statistics of it. So I'll just go ahead and ask it.
Backstory: this was a legitimate Twitter fight that happened in the last couple of weeks, where hundreds of thousands of people voted.
I can't
Go
believe
ahead.
it.
Go ahead.
Do you wash your legs in the shower? Yes, I do.
I just
I
don't
mean, I
even
shave my
understand
legs. Like
the
I
question.
have to. Yeah.
It's like, well, no, not in the shower, but when I take a bath, I do. Like the implication would be that the person who says no never
Do you
cleans their
use-
legs.
I feel like
Soap.
the question is: do you wash your legs in the shower every time?
that's the better question.
Every time,
Yes.
or is it like you're just depending on, especially if you're like a loofah user, that the excess
That
body
it-
wash
that-
just kind of
So
that
it's
your
about
dirty
Are you
body
saying
wash
that it's about
goes down your
exfoliation?
legs and cleans you.
Do you, Austin? Do you wash your legs every time you shower?
I don't.
Me either.
Yeah.
man. I just
Do
Here's-
you, Ben?
yes.
Also, it's unfair
part
to
of the
have.
process.
I think it's unfair to have. You would have to ask men this, because the percentage for women is going to be astronomically higher.
yeah, just
Because
yeah.
I mean, for the most part, they're
Soc-
shaving, if not every day, fairly often,
society
right?
Yeah,
standards, yeah.
And you're going to use soap.
Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're cutting yourself all the time.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to have just like the men
Okay, wait.
answer this question.
Okay.
Let's go around and then we can debate.
Exclude me.
Avery
Sorry.
says she washes her legs every time.
Yes.
You say no.
Not every time.
I say no. Ben says yes.
So I
Every time?
That's why
Every time.
to this question, like do you wash your legs in the shower? I would have said yes, but a better question is, do you wash your legs in the shower every time?
No. But I also take 2 showers a day.
As do I.
I take one
Yeah. No,
take 2
I
in
just
the morning.
I just don't, you know? I saw a diagram one time, and this may be too much information, but I saw a diagram one time, and it was like, it turned into a meme, but it was like how dudes wash themselves in the shower, and it was like hot zones. It was like their head, their pits, their groin, and it was like
Hot
good.
I'm incredibly
That is
focused on my torso.
Incredibly disturbing to me.
Do you wash your back every time?
Yes. Yes, every time.
Yeah, but I'm not convinced I get it thoroughly.
That's
because-
how.
Yeah,
I can
that's
only
weird.
do my shoulder blades.
Yeah. That's the
No,
back is
under,
difficult.
Like back here, this way.
Yeah, the back is difficult.
Reversing your arm like that is washing you adequately.
It depends on your
I mean,
wingspan.
it's
I
better
believe.
than nothing.
Also,
at all.
I stand in the shower with my back to the water literally the entire time.
Okay, wait. Let me. Really?
no.
Really?
I'm a back to the water kind of guy.
Only when I'm rinsing my hair.
Well, let me ask you this: have you ever sat in the shower?
Yeah.
Yes.
When I was sad.
I mean, how?
Avery says every day.
how do I shave my legs? I can't do it standing.
Oh,
Well, in college, I had to stand, but I don't know.
Well, I have one of those fiberglass,
It's just
drop-in
easier if I
showers
sit.
where you can't.
Yeah, me
I could not
too.
physically sit
Yeah.
down in my shower.
I do too.
No,
yeah, I like showering in bench
But-
shower. It's nice.
but see, I think that it's kind of gross to sit in the bottom of the shower.
Whitman.
Yeah, then you're entering in the whole debate about the tub. Like,
Well,
why
ours
would you
is
sit in your own filth?
ours
Well,
is
that's
a tub
true.
shower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And
that's
look,
what we have.
like we could, like we clean our shower, but it just seems kind of gross. You know, like
You
if
know
you're
what
wor-
else seems kind of gross? Not bathing your
not
whole
washing
body
your
when
legs.
you're getting in the
Next
shower.
question.
Are you
It's
worried
like-
about your legs being fragrant?
No, it's
it's
it's not
just
about that at
general
all. It's like
hygiene.
here's the
Austin, do you
task.
pee in the shower?
Yeah, everybody pees in the shower.
No, everybody does not
No,
pee in the shower.
Everyone does not pee
Oh
in
my
the shower.
gosh, who raised you people?
People that
That's
pee
all
in the
boys.
shower.
All boys.
When
All
you-
right.
Yeah, when you
We
get
gotta
in the
move on.
shower, the goal is to bathe your body.
Yes.
I
Cleanliness.
know this
general
is.
hygiene.
We're gonna get comments on this episode.
What
Do you wash your face in the shower?
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Look.
Well, at least it's
Yeah, I just didn't think it was that weird.
So here's a little backstory. I used to wash my legs every time in the shower, but at some point in my life in high school, my legs started to itch super bad
Use
after
lotion.
taking a shower. No.
Oh, after the
I
shower.
tried, yes.
Okay.
After drying
switch,
off.
switch body washes.
Avery, shut up.
I'm trying to help you.
I've
are my
done all
legs.
these things. The only thing that fixed it was to stop washing my legs every time.
So, but how often do you wash your legs?
Now,
Yeah.
probably twice a week.
Yeah. I like every other.
There is a movement of people that would say that in modernity we bathe too much.
Yes.
Just
I don't-
period. We're in the shower too much.
I don't know about
If
Only bathe when you get dirty.
women can validate not washing their hair every day, then you should be allowed to validate not washing your legs every day.
I agree.
Next question.
Next question. We could argue about this.
I do brush my
Yes.
teeth every day though.
Yeah, good for you.
2-3 times a day.
Yeah.
Okay, it's kind of a loaded question, but I really
Well,
do.
What did we just go through?
We could have stopped there.
Yeah.
Just so you know, this is one of those questions that's going to derail the whole day because it's going to come up at lunch.
At lunch,
and
yeah.
everybody on staff
That felt
will have
like
an
lunch.
opinion.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
What album, in your opinion, is the best musically and or lyrically?
And or.
Yeah, and or.
Do you
Or-
think people care about our music preferences?
I think they're listening to see if we align, but I don't know that they really care about the reasons.
Because anytime I give somebody like, oh yeah, I really like this, they're like, whatever.
See, that's a like when
But
someone
not all
tells
people are
me,
musical.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel differently about that. When someone tells me their favorite band or like an album that means a lot to them, I will go listen to it.
Yeah, Avery, that's you.
You are. Yes,
Okay.
that is
we need
definitely
more
you.
fours.
There are more people, other personalities that pay attention to lyrics. But I think my impression is, because I've fallen into this trap and it happened the other night at dinner, actually, of talking about lyrics. People were talking about, my group of friends was saying, if you could go back and go to a concert, which one would you choose? And we were talking about different things. And I started talking about, man, the lyric for this song, the lyric for that song. And they kind of flatlined on
You're
me.
the first person I ever met that like did that as much as you
Really?
do.
Well, I think for most people, it's an experiential thing. Like you're talking about the concert, it's like, oh man, I was there. Whereas you're going to give more thoughts to where you were when you first heard the lyric and why it stuck with you.
But also, you hear Ben talk about his childhood, and like 65% of it will be how Dave Matthews was affecting his life at the time. Same with Avery.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm
though.
not. No, stop thinking I'm attacking you. I'm saying that you just because you're that way doesn't mean everybody's that way.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying
and
to say.
I'm not
I've
expecting
noticed
other
it.
people to be like
Yeah,
that.
well, I did. That was my mistake. I thought that people were, when like they're listening to music, they're listening to the music and what the artist is saying.
Yeah, because Dalton, like I've probably played the same 10 songs in the car over and over and over and over, and over again, and he has no idea what the song is about. We're just different.
I think our answers are going to be indicative of that because I guarantee you two, Ben and Avery, are absolutely going to go the lyric route.
Yep.
For sure.
Right? And Austin and I will probably think, yeah, I don't really mirror the lyrics much, but gosh, the freaking
But also as a musician,
whatever sounded great.
I feel like I can really appreciate the music too.
That's where I fall short because I can appreciate music, but I don't fully appreciate the technicality of what the artist is doing.
Right.
I just know like, wow, that sounds very good and
I
intelligent.
think as of right now, I no longer care about what we're talking about. I think we should get to the question.
We're already in an argument now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love how good we are at arguing. Look
Yeah.
at this.
we do.
You are right though, because my immediate thought was shows that I had been to,
Mm.
and I'm like, that takes me like, oh man, I really love that band,
Yeah.
and this was when I loved that band. You know, I don't know.
So
All right,
what's
who,
yours,
who
Avery?
knows?
Yeah, Avery.
Because I don't have a freaking answer. You always do this, and I'm like, do you know how much
I have a
music
cop out,
I
but
listen
like
to?
I'm going with the thing that popped in my head immediately,
John Mayer.
and just taking it as John Mayer Continuum.
love it.
Which
It's a-
coincidentally, I could answer the lyrics and,
Yes.
Right.
but really
Yes.
the music of that.
it is.
I could care less about. I
Beautiful
couldn't care
album.
less about what John's saying.
Don't
Vultures
act
just
like
sounds
you
great.
like John Mayer.
I mean, he's not my favorite, but I can appreciate his musicianship
I'm
for
playing
sure.
with you.
All right, what's yours, Avery?
The first thing that comes to mind.
You can only say that one. You get to say one.
Right. No, I have so many that I could
I know.
go into detail. But the first one that comes to mind is The Hotelier. It's the name of the band. And it's their album called Home, A Place Like There Is No. Or No Place Like Is There. It's something, it's a play on words for sure. It's kind of like a backward sentence.
That was clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy that.
It really, it's a backward sentence. But oh my gosh, it's a really sad album, but the lyrics are just, they are so good. They're so moving.
Home, there's no place like this.
Not,
Is that it?
No, not
Dang
quite. But
Less poetic.
it's also one of those things where the lyrics go hand in hand with the music. And so they do such a good job at building up the song to, like with the emotions of the lyrics and everything. And it's honestly, it's an experience. The whole album is an experience and it's so good.
You know whose music doesn't go hand in hand with their lyrics? Nickelback. If you muted Nickelback's vocals and just played like their hard rock stuff, you'd be like, "Gosh, just freaking slaps."
And then if you just read the lyrics,
You're
you would
like,
not know what
I
genre
wouldn't hit
it
play.
was.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nickelback gets a bad rap.
It's called Home.
I think
like
they
no
have
place
good music.
Is there.
They're
Home like no
turdy.
place
Places.
is there.
Okay.
And no place doesn't have a space in between.
same with Creed. Some of Creed's soundtrack stuff is.
I
great.
definitely dissed Third Day and Creed yesterday in the talk, and it was
Man,
yeah.
I LOL'd on that third day. I was the only guy, man.
Yeah, nobody got it.
You're
and I was
welcome,
like,
Chase.
man, nobody,
LOL.
I-
No,
nobody-
just
something
Dalton
Ben never
chuckled.
says.
I'm like, nobody gets it, but I'm like, y'all all know. That's who that dude was trying to be. He was like
All right.
Jesus Creed.
Ben.
Yes, I have a very succinct answer.
Good.
We've been through 2 weeks of your succinct answers.
Okay, the album for both reasons, Bon Iver's Bon Iver.
Yeah.
All right,
You can't even hear what he's saying.
but when you dig into the
No.
lyrics, you're
Didn't
like,
even read it.
Yes.
genius,
Wow.
genius.
That's
And
a great answer.
so what he does with lyrics, awesome. Then you can also, and is totally a nod, even though were just a jerk to me. Totally a nod to you. Because you can go to YouTube and you can watch guys dissect, like,
Yes.
what in the world is this guy doing on this track?
Yes.
I've never heard an album like
I
that.
watch videos like that all the time.
It's pretty impressive.
Dissecting albums.
Although I will say, I wish you would have named his band like something different. Because
It didn't sound like a name.
yes, because I said
Justin
I have said on multiple occasions Bon Iver, and they're like,
Oh, I love him.
I love him.
Yeah,
Dude,
or
all the time.
like-
It's just as stupid
I mean,
as
but it
Hootie and the
is the guy.
Blowfish.
yeah, or
Like, clearly they're gonna think you're Hootie, Darius.
yeah. But other people who are kind of in the know will say, "You mean Bon Iver?" And I'm like, "No,
Bon Iver.
the guy doesn't. The guy that named it that
He's not from
doesn't-
Idaho.
Doesn't say that." So, but yeah, it's worth digging into.
Bon Iver.
I should come out with a band called Bon Iver.
Yeah.
no
All right, Austin.
space.
GYE.
steal it.
Yeah.
Bon
Do it,
Iver.
Austin.
There is no home as there.
Man, I am.
Thank you.
You had a gut reaction though.
I had a gut reaction. Is that what I should go with?
Yeah, that's what I did. I could have thought about it more. I probably
Okay.
would have picked Wolfpack, but I went with John.
Yeah, and we've done questions like this in the past, and I think I've given different answers every time. There was a specific album that I said last time that I listened to with my dad on a long trip that I always think of, but I won't say that one again. But it's similar. Again, like this is more of an experience thing. It's not even a lyrical thing, but
Yeah.
I grew up loving the Bleachers, and right when I think the week that Caitlin and I got married in 2017, they released their Unplugged album.
Gosh,
And so
that is such a good one.
So for folks that don't know Caitlin and I that well, we eloped, and then we got married in a different state, and then we just drove for like a week. It was awesome, and the whole week we listened to that album.
Wow.
And so whenever I listen to that album, I think of she and I in some random place in Illinois on our way, to another state, and we literally play the album on repeat. And so anytime that album is on, that's what I think.
That's
of.
awesome.
So
I love that.
Bringing in the nostalgia.
yeah.
Great question. We did a great job answering. Are there any more?
That's it.
That's got to be it. It took a long time.
Jason's like, that's it.
Recommend.
Recommend.
Recommends.
Recommends.
I'm gonna cut yours.
Recommends.
Woo! All right, excited.
Last segment.
2 long segments in a row. Hopefully you're still listening, Owen. Now he feels weirded out that I just called him out. He's also always like 2 months behind.
Let me say,
so-
we're gonna get a text from that in May.
Yeah. All right. Want, need, wear, read. More than anything in the world, we just want to give a thank you and a shout out to you, Janice.
Man,
Thanks,
that
Janice.
was a nice like late night DJ.
Yeah, it really was.
Here's
yeah.
to you, Janice.
Here's to you.
What's her last name?
Janice
Richardson.
Janice Richardson.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you the time about that time I met Janice Richardson?
That sounds like John Mulaney's Bill Clinton thing. Janice.
We're thanking her because she saved Christmas by reducing
The
it to
Grinch?
these things.
Good night, Ellen.
Oh wait, no, he stole Christmas.
The Grinch.
Sorry.
Yeah, the Grinch stole Christmas.
Stole Christmas. Janice saved it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that movie.
Oh, we need that T-shirt for the podcast.
You're welcome.
Vertical Plus T-shirt.
Want,
Yes,
need, wear, read. Want, Ben.
All right, we're
go.
starting with want. I realize how this is going to make me sound. I'm going to go for it anyway.
Okay.
Do it.
My most recent purchase was a result of a problem I was having, in that I just need a commitment that this is a safe place.
I'm not going to say any jokes.
Okay. I
almost said Rogaine, and
That
I
must be
felt
nice.
mean.
No, I did. I had a 1 bottle experience with Rogaine. It was pretty funny.
You used to be more bald.
That's a different podcast. Yes. So
Wait, Ben's story episode 3.
My
Rogaine.
scathing review.
there I was. Yeah.
Sorry.
Here's
go
my
ahead.
experience.
So I'm having issues with not enjoying that first cup of coffee.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I do not enjoy that first cup of coffee, and I've tried all that. Anyway, it's just rough on my stomach is the best way I can put it.
Oh.
So,
Like
yeah.
poop.
No, it isn't even that. It's like, oh,
Like refluxy kind of.
Yeah.
It's because you're not eating.
Are you
general
putting
problem.
creamer
You
in
need to
it?
eat with it.
No, I've tried all the
Oh,
tricks,
okay.
right? So anyway, big long backstory. Cut it. What I've done recently is ordered loose leaf tea, and I've started brewing tea in the morning. and it is awesome.
Now,
What kind of
some
tea?
loose leaf teas help you get into labor faster.
Right. Yeah, they're very clear on the descriptions on websites. Like, here's why you want this tea, right? So yeah, teas have a lot of medicinal properties. But it's been a really, really cool shift in my morning routine to be able to brew some tea. And there's a particular type of tea, I cannot pronounce it, but they smoke the leaves. And my wife calls it beef jerky tea. But I'm bringing this up because
That's the most.
Chase is
Not
like,
marijuana,
anything
right?
smoke, you like it. It's just smoke you like.
I'm not gonna have lung cancer from smoking. It's gonna be all this smoked crap that I like to
Even
buy.
your coffee is kind of smoky.
Yeah,
that's
it
what,
is.
that's what we
Yeah.
talk
Black
about.
and tan tobacco in his
Well, I
coffee cup.
heard an episode on tea from Malcolm Gladwell. He did it was 4th
Great
of July.
episode.
Yeah. And it's that particular type of tea that made him the tea bro. I'm like, well, if Malcolm Gladwell
yeah.
likes
Good
it,
episode.
then I'm going
Yeah.
to give it a try. And yeah, Cammie calls it the beef jerky tea, but it's pretty amazing.
I'm glad there's somebody else in my life that's like that because I'll hear something like that and be like, all right, let's
Got to
try
give it a try. Yeah. And it's worked.
You're totally a 6'7".
Am I?
It's not even like a competition.
Okay.
Gotta be.
Yeah. So anyway,
Not to type you.
I'm going to recommend that,
Loose leaf tea.
yeah, you purchase some. It's very
Not paper.
Yeah, very low barrier to entry. You can even get some quality loose leaf tea on Amazon from particular companies.
Then
And-
put it in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah, no, you put it in
Austin
teapot.
Powers.
Yeah, all right. So that's what you want, loose leaf tea. Give it a shot. Give it a shot.
Different. I like it. Need.
Yeah, that's me. So Dalton, my husband, recently purchased these for him and I, and it's not anything.
He and I.
He and I,
him
sorry.
and me. Pick a lane.
And it's not anything extravagant, but in a pinch, I'm sure it will be useful. And so it is a glass breaker and seatbelt cutter 2-in-1. And you just keep it in your car.
Speaking of acknowledging your fears,
Yeah. I mean, I haven't tested it out, but I'm sure it works.
let's hope you never have to.
Yes. But it's a good thing to keep in your car just in case. So yeah, that's what you need.
All you have to do is read one article about someone who would have been fine
Yes.
if they could have gotten theirs out of their seatbelt.
Yeah.
She was right the first time. I think it's him. For him and I.
Are you still
Jesus.
thinking about this?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this morbid need. You're not wrong. I mean, it's a smart thing to have.
Hey, she's gone by definition.
Ooh.
That's
Need.
definitely in my family. That's one of those things that you open on Christmas, and
You're like,
everybody's like, "Oh,
okay."
okay, cool, yeah."
Yeah.
So-
That would be a
Well,
dirty Santa
I mean,
gift
yeah.
in my family.
I didn't suggest that we needed it. Dalton just ordered it one day and was like, "This is."
And then you
this
went
is
off
so-
in the lake, and you're like, "I'm glad I got
I'm glad I
this."
had that.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks,
Wouldn't it
Dalton.
be so awesome if next week Avery comes on soaking wet, hair still wet,
It works.
and she comes in and she's just like, "Hey, you remember that thing I recommended last week?
I
would-
meant it.
Saved my freaking
That would
life."
not
Avery would
be
never drive
awesome.
again.
I would never. No, I wouldn't.
The panic that just went over her face.
Do you have fear when you drive
suggested-
over lakes?
Not over lakes, just driving in general.
You do.
Big bridges over large bodies of water. I'm
Just hold your
petrified.
breath.
Like Pontchartrain.
You can't do that all the way to New Orleans.
Yeah.
Well, don't go to New Orleans.
I don't anymore.
It's a dirt
You know what's
town.
more dangerous than that bridge? The town
Yeah,
you're
New
going to.
Orleans.
Yeah.
True. All right, where? Me. Don't wait. No, don't
Here.
wear me. I'm doing.
You're doing.
I'm doing
We
where?
understood. Yes.
Yes.
Here.
Oof.
I shall be recommending. Great brand. Anybody ever heard of Goodfellow?
Yes,
Target brand does all kinds of great things for men.
my shampoo.
Yeah.
Also, my body wash.
My
that
body
sometimes
wash.
reaches my legs.
Sometimes.
Once a quarter.
I
Anyway,
didn't like that. I really didn't like that.
coincidentally, this is also an upper body recommendation. A Goodfellow rain jacket. They are. I honestly think it's Columbia. I think it's Columbia level quality at half the price. They have great colors. It fits great. Zips up well. You know, some rain jackets are a little tight and then like kind of scrunch up around your waist and stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't. Yeah, they
It doesn't
kinda-
do that.
They ride up, and then some of them like they're really tight on your chest. I don't like that.
Yeah, this one's very roomy in a good way. You don't like it. Doesn't make us skinny guys feel less than. I think
Does it give you the nice windbreaker pants sound?
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
Do you guys have an umbrella and a rain jacket?
I would never do that.
No.
Because I only have a rain
I'm a
jacket. I do
man.
not own an umbrella.
I don't
Yeah,
trust
me
people
neither.
that use umbrellas.
Yeah, I don't like dudes that have umbrellas in their cars.
Really?
I think you think you're better than me.
Yeah.
You're more
Or
prepared.
it's just being prepared.
You're the kind of
No,
person
I
that has
agree.
the
No.
icebreaker seatbelt cutter thing.
That's
That's
true.
right. If I was in the car with you and we went into a lake and you broke out that thing, I'd be like, what, you think you're better than me?
Thanks. Let me borrow it. But
No, you should be thanking me for saving your life.
Oh, no, I will stubbornly die.
that is probably true.
Okay.
All right.
All right, reading into that a little bit.
Rain jacket. that's-
Addressing your fears.
Rain jacket is practical. I think I lost mine in the move. I don't know what happened to it. I
The
think,
move of 2020.
Yeah, I think it ended up in a donate pile on accident. And I'm kind of bummed out about that. So I need to replace
blame
it.
Caitlin.
Replace it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably Caitlin. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, read me.
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
So I'm currently reading a book by a guy named Ross Edgley, and I was actually telling you about this yesterday. He is we've recommended David Goggins on here before. He's like white British David Goggins. He is just an incredible dude. There's some awesome videos of him on YouTube where he does a marathon with a tree strapped to his back. It's incredible. So anyway, his name is Ross Edgley, and the book is called The Art of Resilience. And in this book, it's a mashup of sports science and stoicism. So if you've ever read any Ryan Holiday, he talks about a lot of stoic principles. And so essentially, he set a record by not only doing it for the first time, but setting the pace for swimming completely around Great Britain. And this book was written as he was on the boat resting at night. So when he left the shore in early spring and embarked to swim around Great Britain, he never touched the shore again. He would rest on the boat in 6-hour intervals at night, but he never touched the shore again. And so he wrote this book while he was resting in the library on this boat before he would go swim again. And it is so good. I
Wow.
mean, this dude is so thoughtful, and the way that he meshes up all of these teachings of Marcus Aurelius with this modern day sports science. My favorite quote thus far, I have to say this because I nerded out over it and journaled about it yesterday morning. The quote was, "The nation that makes the great distinction between its scholars and its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools." I was like, oh my God, this dude makes me want to run through a
Some
wall.
modern guy wrote that?
Yeah. So good.
Wow.
So good.
That's when you look at preachers who write books that are just their sermons. You're
Yeah,
like,
you're so
oh,
dumb.
good for you, buddy.
Yeah. So the Art of Resilience.
Swim around an island and write a book at night.
Yeah, he's crazy. The Art of Resilience, Ross Edgley. It is.
Okay, honest question because you have no filter with your recommends. Is this a 500-page book?
It's a 400 and something page.
$4.99.
He's got to let people know what they're getting into because I'm in a 350 right now.
But it's font size 16.
Right. Yeah, there are lots of pictures of the island and the swim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really. This one's a long one.
I was
But I
joking.
mean, it took him months to swim it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like his journal entries as he's doing it.
Yeah. Worth a read.
It's great. Reshma would read it. She would like it.
What
Okay.
an episode. Congratulations, Chase.
Yeah, let's finish it.